Hello there, welcome to another episode of Ringgit Sense. I'm your host, Azaria Tagaya. Now, last week we started on our series of tips on how to acquire property. So today we're going to be talking more about buying your first home. Now, it's the biggest financial obligation you can make, and it's going to take a lot of financial discipline to save up enough money for the down payment. So in today's episode, we want to find out how we can achieve this financial goal by setting a monthly budget. To walk us through the process, today we have with us in the studio a certified financial planner from the Financial Planning Association of Malaysia, Kevin Neo. Hi, Kevin. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening.
Good evening. Now, so when we're talking about saving money to buy your first home, we'd like to take a look at the demographic of our viewers. So we'll give you a case study of someone who is just starting in their career and they want to buy their first home. So let's assume this person is 25 years old.
Okay.
They earn 3,500 ringgit, which is the typical young working adult in Malaysia. So he takes the MRT to work and he wants to buy a home worth 300,000 ringgit.
300,000, okay.
Okay, in the Klang Valley. So what sort of monthly budget should this person come up with?
Okay, Azaria, before I answer you the question, I would like to address what is financial planning. Okay, so financial planning is the process that helps us to make sensible decisions about our money so that we can pursue our life goals.
Yeah.
All right, having said that, you see, normally we think that you need to have savings, then only you can have the financial muscle to pursue your life goals. But usually people say, I don't have savings. How do I even think about that? So instead of fixing your budget, like how many % of your income spent for transport, how many % on food, I would give another method. That is that when you receive your income, you should consider to set aside a portion of money for rainy days, that is for emergency, and then another portion is for your insurance, all right, to cover any unexpected or unforeseen events that could disrupt your plannings. Okay. Then you set a third portion to allow you to save up to pursue your life goals. And whatever that is still balanced, then you make plans with it for your lifestyle.
Okay.
So that you have less limitation, less restriction, and more freedom to pursue your own kind of lifestyle based on whatever is left.
Okay. Okay, so if this person is earning about 3,500 ringgit per month, which is something that is faced by a lot of people these days, that's a typical demographic in Malaysia, especially for a young working adult earning only about 3,000 to 3,500. So how should this person start in saving their money?
So the method that I was proposing just now was that when you get your money, you transfer one portion that is meant for you to save for your life goals. That is, in this case, let's say to buy a house, you need to prepare down payment. Yeah. So before you even get to spend that money, first transfer that money into another savings account, which your mind will then forget about you having that money.
Okay.
All right. So you save it. So assuming this person wants to buy a house in 3 years for a 300,000 house, he or she may have to save based on 3,500 gross income, may have to save about 25% of the gross income into that separate account. Then, if all goes well, hopefully by end of year 3, this person will have enough initial fund to pay for the property purchase.
Okay, but 25% is quite a big amount to take out.
It is a big amount. So this, after you set aside 25%, and then the other make provision for rainy days and insurance and other things, and you find that the balance is not enough for you to live a reasonable lifestyle as a young person. Yeah. So in that case, you have no choice but to stretch your goal into, instead of 3 years, maybe 4 years.
Okay, I see. What about the goal of the house that you're looking at buying? Is 300,000 ringgit in the Klang Valley feasible? Are you able to find a house at that price now?
If you really look at it, there are some schemes or assistance program that is being implemented that aims to help a person to find this kind of home. For example, you can check out this perumahan housing scheme. Property value is ranging about 100,000 to less than 400,000. So in that sense, it's still possible. All right, and if you don't have a down payment, you can also try to apply for this My First Home scheme, which you can buy or make purchase of property ranging from 100,000 to less than 500,000. But the condition for under this scheme is that your loan amount must not be more than 1/3 of your income. So if we look at this case study, it is most likely still beyond the reach of this young person, because 1/3 is not going to be the rental, the housing installment that he has to pay for a 3,000 ringgit house is definitely going to be more than 1/3 of the income.
Okay. What about in terms of the hidden charges that a person has to be ready to pay? Because some people go into property investment, they want to buy their first home simply because it's a Malaysian thing, an Asian thing that you have to have your first home. You have to have a roof. Yeah, but they don't know there are a lot of hidden charges. So what are some of them that we have to be prepared for?
Well, these are not really hidden charges. It's just that charges that we don't conventionally associate to purchase house. And we only find out when we have really implement the plan. Yeah. So these are actually transaction costs, whereby when I buy a house, I have to sign a sales and purchase agreement. And for that thing, I have to pay legal fee. Right, and then for the title of the house to be transferred to my name, I have to pay stamp duty as well. Then when I take out a loan, there will be a loan agreement between me and the financial institution, the bank. So for this agreement, there's also a legal fee and stamp duty. So these are the costs that if you are not doing your homework, it may strike you by surprise. So typically for a 300,000 house, it should come out to about 4% of the price tag of the property. But in this year, before the end of December in 2018, for first-time home buyer, you can actually entitle for 100% exemption on stamp duty up to 300,000. So whatever that is excess, you have to pay at the prevailing rates. Okay. So it's still a bit of savings available there.
Okay, so most people in Malaysia start working around 24, 25, so they start earning their first paycheck. So how soon should you plan to buy your first home? And like a friend of mine told me that he bought his first home at 29 and he considers it quite late in his career. So is there a limit to when you should buy your first home, or does it depend on your finances?
I would say it's very subjective and depending on the person. So every one of us has our own time. We are running on our own track, so we don't compete with other people. So if your plan is to have a family or a property before age 30, then definitely you have to start as early as possible. So the thing is that we need time for our money to work for us. Right? So when I start late and my time, let's say my deadline is only 1-2 years away, so definitely it's a very stressful thing. Yeah. But when I start early, I can break the commitment that I have to set aside into a lower amount, so it becomes more doable in that sense.
I see. Okay. Now, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about saving up to buy your first home. Is it better to save together with a spouse? Well, we'll find that out when we come back on Ringgit Sense. We're back on Ringgit Sense. You're still with me, Azaria Tagaya. Now, we're talking about saving money to buy your first home. And with us in the studio today, we have Kevin Yeo, Certified Financial Planner from the Financial Planning Association of Malaysia. Okay, Mr. Neo, back to our discussion. Now, before the break, we talked about setting your monthly budget in acquiring your first home. So, keeping on that topic, is it better for you to buy a new home or something that is already on the market?
Okay, well, back to the example that we went through just now. So for a person who wants to buy a 300,000 house, he or she may have to save about 900 ringgit a month for the next 3 years, so that he or she hopefully have enough money to fund for the down payment. Now, if a person goes the alternative way to buy a new house today, that means to sign the purchase agreement today, then for the next 3 years during the construction period, this person may have to just service the interest payment only, which is very small compared to the full installment. But then the question is that if you buy a new property today, you still have to pay the down payment, which is almost equal to the 10%, right? Yeah. But the good thing is that if you go to do some shopping, you will notice that nowadays a lot of rebates are being offered by housing developers to people who purchase. So in that sense, it helps you to knock down quite a lot of the 10% down payment. And by having the time for the next 3 years, by paying lesser and minimal amount to service the interest only, this person can now have ability to save money for other goals, such as marriage or having a child.
Is it better to save if, let's say, you're married and you have a spouse and your spouse is also working, is it more beneficial for you to save together? And how many percentage should each person save?
It also depends on the couple. See, some couple, they want to share the dream together. They want to build their family together, 50-50, so they can contribute 50-50. But certain couple, maybe the other one is earning more, so he or she may want to contribute a little bit more to the family. So when these two person is very confirmed, they want to build a family together, they want to buy a house together, they can, number one, they have to work out how much they have to prepare in how long the time frame. Then they can work backward to know how much they have to set aside from each of their monthly income.
Okay, so even though you're saving together with a spouse, it depends on your personal income, your personal salary, how much you're making each month.
Yes.
Okay, now is it easier these days to get a 90% or 100% loan? When my financial institution approve an application for loan, they will look at how likely the person can afford to service the loan. Okay.
So we call that a debt service ratio, whereby we take into consideration all your loan installment, we divide over your net take-home income. So if a person has 80% of the income being used to service loan, then this person is not having a very healthy lifestyle, because you're only left with 20% to support everything, which is not likely.
Yeah.
So you have to look at your own debt servicing ratio to determine what kind of loan amount you need to apply for, and you can afford to service.
I see. So when looking at these individuals, what actually affects their credit score?
In Malaysia, if you look at credit score, you can refer to CTOS score. Okay, so if we check the breakdown of what makes up the CTOS score, it is mixed up for 5 components, and your payment history is the most important one. It has the biggest weightage among all 5 factors combined. So the next one would be how much you owe. It takes about 30%. Your credit history length, how long your credit file. Let's say if you keep on refinance, you have a new loan account, credit account. So your credit history length is going to be short, because almost all the accounts keep on regenerate itself, become a new one. And then if you keep on applying for new credit, it will also affect your credit score. So a CTOS score ranging from 300 to 850. The higher your CTOS score, the healthier you are in terms of credit wise.
So is it, do you think it's better to buy or rent for the long term? Is renting a good option?
It depends on your choice of lifestyle and career planning. If this person don't really plan to stay in Klang Valley for the long haul, then buying a property now may not be the best option, because you wouldn't know 5 years from now which state will be working. Maybe you'll be going back to your hometown to contribute to the growth of your hometown. It's difficult to say unless that person has really have a concrete plan for that.
Okay, so what would be your final tip to our viewers on how to start budgeting to buy their first home?
How to start budgeting?
The first step they should do.
You must first know what kind of house you want to buy, and you can also project your income. That means if you know that your income is going to grow about 2 to 3% a year, just for example, you can at least do a spreadsheet calculation to project 5 years later how much you'll be earning, so that you know that you have how much of freedom and flexibility to make adjustment. So all in all, people, you just need to plan more and then only enjoy. Not enjoy and then try to plan, because ultimately you will have less option.
Okay, plan and then enjoy. Good tips there from Mr. Kevin Nyo, certified financial planner from the Financial Planning Association of Malaysia. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, so there you have it, our discussion today on how to save up to buy your first home. Hopefully you have some interesting takeaways from this discussion. We are going to take a short break. Back after this with more on Ringgit Sense. Welcome back to Ringgit Sense. You're still with me, Azaria Tagaya. Today, we are talking about buying your first property. Perhaps you're watching this show right now and you're on the lookout to buy your first property, either to make it your home or perhaps purely for investment purposes. Now, before the break, we shared with you how to save up to buy your first home. And if you're looking at the latter option, which is investment, then you may have many questions, as dabbling in the property market can be a huge life-changing investment. Last week, we aired the first part of our interview with Faizul Rizwan, a property enthusiast, about how to invest in property. In part 2, Faizul gives us his tips on how to rent out the property and how to select good tenants.
Faizul Rizwan runs Far Capital Sendirian Berhad, a company that advises customers on what properties to invest in to achieve their financial goals. Faizul himself owns a few properties and says there's a big difference between buying a property to stay in versus to invest in. For homes that one buys to stay in, as long as it fits your budget and you like the place, there are no other issues. For properties that are bought as an investment, the ultimate aim is to rent it out to make a profit. One of the common mistakes he says investors make is buying a property just because of the branded location without considering the price.
We always find that the mantra of location, location, location for property is one of the most commonly abused, because if that is the case, then everyone should just buy KLCC. But for most people who study the market, you will begin to understand that if you have parked your money in Puchong 10 years ago and you park your money in KLCC, you would have made a lot more in Puchong. Does it mean Puchong is a better location than KLCC? Answer is no. It's just that Puchong is available at the right price and the right product, right supply. While KLCC, wrong price, wrong size, wrong product, and supply-wise, everything seems to boom, come in the next 5 years, and then after that, the whole market just basically, until today, you can buy KLCC properties at 10 years ago price. Bukit Beruntung has not made money for 15 years. In the last 5 years, anyone who put money in Bukit Beruntung, let's say 5 years ago, today would have doubled their money. Okay? So, while Bukit Beruntung, as an investment area, 90% of the people who invest there lose money in the last 20 years. Right? But today, at the right price point, 5 years ago, there are people who made a killing buying Bukit Beruntung, because property have literally doubled. In some cases, went up by 250% 5 years. Right? So, the context here is that as long as you enter the right price, the area or the property becomes viable.
To command a high rental price, Faizul always makes sure his property is furnished well to make it look presentable.
A lot of people just focus on getting the right property. But if you get so-so property, but you know exactly what to do with the property can yield you a return which is far beyond what a great property can. So you need to have both sides. Okay? I always tell people, if your unit looks like a unit from hell, you cannot attract a tenant from heaven. Right? So if your unit looks terrible, and you're putting a 10-year-old bed, it's full of stain. You put a 10-year-old TV, a 29 CRT TV, not even flat TV, CRT TV, right? What are the chances that you're going to attract the best tenant who's going to be happy to pay you 10 to 20% above market rate, right? So in our business, for example, when people are renting at 2002, we are able to command a rental of 2008, 3000. 20 to 30% more than what the market could get, simply because, like I said, knowing what to do with the property after you buy it is just as important, if not more important, than knowing what to buy.
Faizul has rented to various people, and he shares some of the horror stories about the worst tenants he has ever encountered.
I've done this for 12 years. I've probably had 200 tenants now, I've rented to drug lords, and I've rented to what I suspect is a prostitution ring, But you see, no one comes to you and say, Mr. Faizul, I want to rent your place and I'm a prostitute. No one, right? So they will tell you, I'm here for holiday, I'm doing internship, blah, 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 blah. They are able to produce a document that says they do internship. So, you don't suspect much lah. I mean, after a very basic due diligence, then after that you go ahead with it. No, the drug lord one is interesting, he said he was a businessman. Technically, he didn't lie lah, Doing drugs is business, he says business. So yeah, at one point of time, my unit was busted by Bukit Aman. Less than 5 instances whereby tenant don't pay, and after 2 or 3 months left.
He has not perfected his system of selecting the right tenant, but he does screen their credit score to ensure they're able to pay rent.
I look at their employment. Okay, I prefer someone who has a stable basic pay rather than a commission earner. If they are running a business, I avoid, let's say for example, people who are just 1 or 2 years in business. Because the chances of failing for businesses in the first 2 years is 90%. So naturally, if you are struggling in your business, the first thing you will skip paying is rental, right? In certain cases, for example, I've gone to the extreme by asking for their secret report. And for certain tenants, whereby, for example, if they are doing MLM, and they are doing business, I normally ask for secret report. Those who does not want to give me, I will tell them that's fine, okay, but I won't be able to rent you my property because I don't know what's your credit score like, right? But those who actually give me shows that they've got nothing to hide and normally they're quite clean. That in those instances, I actually rent out to them, even though they're not my preferred tenant.
Most of the properties that Faisal owns is also rented to expats, as this group is most able to pay the high rental he is asking for.
So I like professionals, I like low-budget expats. Those are my favorites. The one with the rental budget of 2,000 to 3,000. So expat, they are 20,000, 30,000 budget, they are 10,000, they are 5,000. I play the 2,000 to 3,000 space. The affordable expats category. So more than half of my tenants are expats.
At the end of the day, Faisal says it's important that landlords know what the tenants are looking for in the area they're renting and to meet their demands.
Right, so you have to understand who's your audience, what do they really want, and then fit your unit as per your audience, what your audience really want, rather than what we personally want. The mistake a lot of people do is that we think it's something that our audience wants, but actually it's not. It's what you want. Your audience doesn't care what you want, they care about what they want.
We hope the tips that we provided today will start you on a journey to owning a home, or at least help you decide if you want to own a home or just rent for the time being. In any case, remember to invest in knowledge before you invest in property. Now, to catch up on today's show, go to our Facebook page, Ringgit Sense TV3. I'm Azaria Tagaya. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.